Yes, and I can see in your background. So I'm going to introduce you real quick. Hi, everyone. It is I, the real Randy Chavez, coming at you with
We're
Jonathan Little. Yes, we're live.
I was unaware.
Jonathan is an American professional poker player who won both the World Poker Tours Season 6 Mirage Showdown and Season 7 Foxwoods World Poker Finals, and also won the World Poker Tournament Season 6 Player of the Year Award. How's it going? Did you play this morning?
I have played no poker this morning. I currently live in New York City, and about 5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to settle down and have a family. I didn't want to be traveling, playing poker all day, every day anymore.
Yeah.
Because I've already done that for 15 years. And I made a poker training site called pokercoaching.com, which is currently the biggest poker training site in the world. We teach players how to win at poker. So that is now my day job to some extent. And I travel to play usually about 1 week out of every 6 weeks or so to play a bunch of high stakes poker tournaments. But that's not when I'm at home. So my next trip is to the World Series of Poker at the end of June.
Yeah, I think I have a couple friends there now already doing stuff for that. Where did you used to play before you lived in New York City? Were you always based here? Because I would go to Atlantic City like all the time.
No, so I grew up in Florida, and whenever I grew up in Florida, there was no poker in Florida back then. Now there's actually a lot of poker in Miami, but there was not any where I was from. So I played online from when I was 18 to 21, and then I moved to Las Vegas. And I lived in Las Vegas up until about 8 or so years ago whenever I met my wife. And she made me go to New York. Her parents live here. She works here. She's not moving. And, it is what it is. Now here I live. I live in New York now. But I used to travel a lot more to play poker, but I now just try to play poker as little as I possibly can in terms of time, but I want to play a ton in a short period of time. So I'll go play a bunch of high buy-in poker tournaments over the course of a week or so and just play a lot in that week.
That would make sense. There was one day, it was actually like 4 years ago. I was in Vegas and it was just in a poker room. I don't know if it was at Caesars or Monte Carlo. I think it was at Caesars. And it happened to be what one guy just stood up. It was like, Anthony Bourdain is dead. Like we were all pretty drunk. What was your most memorable time playing poker that had nothing to do with poker? That was something where something happened in real life. Like, wow, I'm going to remember this forever. And I was here playing poker.
It's going to sound bad, but I have an awful, awful, awful memory. I don't remember much of anything because I've seen a lot at the poker table. Yeah. I mean, like I've seen a guy die at the poker table from like just getting old. I've seen
oh my god,
getting in fights at the poker table. I mean, pretty much anything you can imagine I've seen. I mean, I played with a bunch of celebrities at the poker table.
Yeah.
One time I was playing with Derek Jeter at Bellagio, and
how is he? Is he good?
Good, fine. I mean, he's not like world class or anything, but he's certainly fine enough. He didn't give his money away. He got unlucky and asked me if he thought I got unlucky, and he did. I think he made 3 of a kind and lost to a straight, and like, what are you gonna do? And I don't know. Like I've seen it all at the poker world, at the poker table, and to some extent, nothing really surprises me. I think a lot of people they play poker for excitement, whereas I never really played poker for excitement. I play poker to make money because I like winning at games. And if you feel the ups and downs of gambling or things that happen, that'll get your emotions involved. And when your emotions get involved, sometimes you won't think especially clearly, and then you may make a mistake. And whenever you're playing high stakes, the mistakes can cost you a lot of money. So you want to make sure you think as absolutely clearly as you can. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm bad at remembering anything. I go to bed, I wake up, I'm ready to go another day.
Yeah, I mean, after you see someone die at the table, you're probably just like, all right, nothing can faze you at that point.
I mean, it's bound to happen if you think about it. I mean, if you sit anywhere long enough with some old people, I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah. So there's a project that I had heard about, and I actually wanted to read the message that was sent to me. And you've probably seen it already. It was in your Discord channel from T Newman 4 saying, if I may, let me be Jonathan Little's personal hype man for anyone still on the sidelines with this project. Knowing it could take a day or two for Shannon to get any funds to him, he went out and procured enough Ethereum to pay anyone tonight for up to first place cash. It was 70 to 80 ETH for the record. That's his integrity. That's how much he cares. That's how much he over delivers. If you can find another project with any owner with that kind of commitment, by God, pile your ETH in it. But if you can't, that we'd love to have you as part of the Deck of Degeneracy. Can you tell us a little bit about the project and how you started the NFTs?
Oh man, so I have been in the NFT space for about a year, and I like the NFTs. I have a bunch of NFTs. I have a gigantic collection of all sorts of NFTs. I like the art. I like making money off NFTs, and I realized that with my poker training site, a lot of people want to get part of my poker action. Like I was Poker Personality of the Year a while back. I got that trophy over there for being Poker Personality of the Year. I have a big YouTube channel,
That's cool.
and I'm like famous in the poker world, which is, not really
Yeah.
famous, but famous in the poker world. And so people want to get my action in poker tournaments to the point that so many of them want it that I cannot sell it or give it to them reasonably, unless I want to charge some high markup, which is not really fair for them. So I was trying to figure out a way to give out my action randomly to people who are members of my training site. And when I say give out my action, I mean like they give me $100 to play a $10,000 buy-in tournament. They'll have 1% of me. So if I win, they get whatever, they get 1% of whatever I win. If I lose, they lose their $100.
Yeah.
But then I got to thinking, with the NFTs, I could essentially sell NFTs, get enough money to get however much action I need to sell for a year, and then randomly give out that action to the holders of the NFT. So we sold 2,700 NFTs total, which were 50 decks of 54 cards.
Okay.
So every time I go to play a poker tournament, I'll get my deck of cards here. We have our deck of cards, and I will draw a card at random. Let's say I draw this one. Yeah. And if you have whatever this is, the 6 of hearts, you have 1%. So 50 people will have 1% of me in the next tournament I'm playing. Sometimes I'll win, sometimes I'll lose. They don't have to pay anything to get it. They just get it, gifted it. Yeah. And if I lose, they get nothing. If I win, I send them some ETH. So I've also been buying pieces of other very good poker players. One of my best friends in poker is a guy named Shannon Shore. He is currently number 3 in the world, and he sells us some action. And the other day, 2 days ago, I think, he final tabled a $50,000 buy-in tournament. And like T. Newman there said, if you won, I would have owed out about 90 ETH. I think he took 4th place. I owed out about 25 ETH, so it was no problem.
My God.
But so far, I mean, the project's been around for 3 months. We've given back about, $180,000 in ETH in tournament winnings.
God.
So that's one aspect of it. Like I mentioned, I like art. So we had Wes Henry, a decently well-known NFT artist, make the art for the deck of cards that we made. And you can request a physical deck of cards. Everybody can just get them. I mail them to you, right? If you own an NFT, I'll mail you the cards. And I initially planned on having him make something like 4 pieces of NFT art to give away to the holders of a card, right? That seemed logical to me.
Yeah.
But one night I was in the process of bidding for a piece by a guy named Pop Wonder. He's one of my favorite artists in the NFT space. And I was messaging with him. And then I asked, what would I have to do to get you to get me a piece for my deck of degeneracy to give out to 50 people at random? Yeah. He said, let me think about it. The next morning, it was just there in my inbox, ready to go. So that's good. Then I got to thinking, why don't I message every single person I bought art from to see if maybe they want to collaborate or cooperate or, get a piece to me to give away. And now we have about 150 pieces of NFT art in hand, ready to give away over the course of the next year. I give out roughly 2 every other day or so. So we have a ton of NFT art to give away. They're all editions of 50 or so. So the pieces are not that expensive for most of them. Some of them are pretty expensive still. Like there's a piece by this guy, OSF, who just made Rex Guy. Mm-hmm. You seen Rex Guy out there?
I haven't.
Well, so his 1 of 1 art goes for 70 or 80 ETH, something like that. And so the editions are going for about 1 ETH each that we have. And then this Rex Guy NFT, he gave one of those to everybody who had one of the other pieces. So it's almost like our art now has utility to some extent. Yeah. And so if you won that airdrop, you got a 1 ETH piece of art and a 0.5 ETH distribution to some extent. And I mean, that's 1.5 ETH going out to 50 people effectively, which is a bunch of ETH. 75 ETH just fell in my lap to give away. I mean, so look, at the end of the day, I like to make money on anything that I do. And I also enjoy pretty stuff. So I made the project that I wish existed because I have a lot going on. I don't really want to pay attention if I don't want to be paying attention. Yeah. And I made the project such that you can get all of the benefits of it without even paying attention. I mean, so many people have just randomly messaged me oh, I had a piece of this guy and he won. I got $800 in ETH in my account. Yeah.
That's great.
That's a good day. You can watch them play the final table of these tournaments live on there's a site called Poker Go that streams a lot of the profile poker tournaments. You can sweat it out if you want. Another aspect of the project, I mean, again, I just try to do whatever I want to do, right?
Yeah.
I like going to live events with people who I like. So at NFT NYC, I decided to get 40 tickets. Oh, there you go. We'll be there. You can come to this event if you want. I got 40 tickets to my favorite show called Sleep No More. It's an immersive theater show.
I love that place. I love that. Yeah.
All right. Well, you're in then. I've been about 15 times. Anytime my wife and kids are out of town, I go. That's just like a thing I do. Because it's like kind of a weird artsy thing, you know? So anyway, I got 40 tickets to that. Yeah. And then I got an email from Super Rare. Super Rare, they do a lot of one-of-one art, about how they're opening a gallery in New York City. I'm thinking, when in the world am I ever going to get to go there? Because I'm sitting here in front of this computer working all day, every day. But then it occurred to me, something like 6 or 8 artists who contributed to my art collection for Decade Degeneracy are also on Super Rare. So we're going to go to the Super Rare gallery before that for about an hour and a half, and they're going to put all of my artists' art on their screens. So we're going to go there with 40 people and about 6 or 8 Decade Degeneracy artists, and we're going to mingle there for an hour. And then I got a open bar and snacks on the rooftop afterwards for everybody, and it's going to be fun. But like that just kind of fell into place over the last month. It just like popped in my head and like, let's do it.
When you started this, did you put in the smart contracts that, because I mean, the people that buy these, maybe at some point, like let's say I would want to get in, and obviously the minting's over. Like you can't mint any more of those cards. So if I wanted to buy them, people sell them on OpenSea. Mm-hmm. And did you have in the smart contracts where you get like 1% or 2% of the sale every time it sells?
I get 10%.
Nice.
Sale, and I give back 80% of that money in the form of utility over in the future. So the way I initially set it up is the initial sale, we sold out for something like $750,000 total. It was 0.1 ETH times 2,700 items. So 750K is brought in. I'm going to give back about $600,000 in tournament action and or live events. Like I'm going to spend $600,000 in the first year of this project on stuff. Okay. And then that's going to sustain us for a year. And I don't know what's going to happen after a year. I may not want to do the project anymore. Maybe there are no initial secondary sales. I don't know, right? But
there will be.
And there are.
I'm sure of that.
But it cost me effectively $600,000 to run this project a year. But which is fine because I'm bringing in all the money. Like I'm doing fine in terms of money. I'm not doing this project to make money. I'm doing this project because I like it. Because this is like my passion project. It's my hobby. And it's a fun hobby for me. So all the secondary sales are going to go fund the future of the project. So if we have, let's say, $300,000 in secondary sales in the first year, I'll be giving back, I don't know, 250,000 of it, give or take, on year 2. If it's more than that, then like hopefully it's more than that. Hopefully it sustains very well. If there are not enough secondary sales or not a ton of secondary sales, I will probably just make another deck of cards and still keep some utility as much as I can for the first deck, but we'll essentially just roll reseed and get more money. I mean, currently, I think the project has done about 400 ETH in secondary sales. So that means we have 40 ETH brought in, give or take.
What's the floor right now?
0.35, give or take.
Oh, okay. And I know ETH is like, what, 17? ETH is like pretty low.
They're giving it away right now.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's actually interesting. I have a spreadsheet where I keep track of all of the value I've given back so far. And it's been 3 months since we launched. And I've given back about $350,000 in value out of the, in theory, 600 I guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
And we're 3 months in. I'm not going to slow down. And it's because a lot of this art that I've just gotten, I'm getting it relatively cheaply because I support the artists in various ways, and they're happy to contribute and help me, right? Yeah. And so I put a value on all the art pieces at $5,000, which is definitely low, and that's just like giving us a ton of value.
So part of the reason why I got one, because I love poker, I love playing. Me and my friend Steve go not every other month, give or take. He plays, for a living. But also because I am a kind of unofficial ambassador for the VVV Company. Have you heard of them?
I have, but I don't exactly know what it is. Feel free to promote it for us.
Yeah, sure. So basically, they got somehow in like 2018 licenses for Disney and Marvel and DC, and they're dropping NFTs of these guys, and we can get them. And some have utility. Like I just had a Marsing on 2 days ago, who is an art gallerist, champion of LGBTQ rights in India and London. And he partnered with Givenchy and Collective Rewind to do a Pride thing. And all the proceeds from that happen to go to charity. I mean, they can go to whatever you want, but things sell out very, very quickly. Like you could, whether it's like we have 30,000 comics, like we have a comic drop and they'll have 30,000 editions. They'll sell out in 6 seconds, 8 seconds.
It's a good business.
So I was wondering if you would be open to doing a VV drop for a custom like playable card, for a card deck within VV that we could then use to play friends in our houses and showrooms, virtual poker nights, and like I said, pretty much anything you make would, that'd go pretty well.
Man, I don't know. I'm happy to figure it out. I mean, I'm happy to collaborate and work together with good people, and I like everything you're doing. So sure, we'll figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So there's another project called Fish, where there's no poker in it, but you basically get these little fish, and all you have to do is mint the fish, and you get airdropped a tank, you get airdropped all these things every month. It's really cool, and you could fight with them. They get in these little mech suits, and you could gamble with them. You're able to connect to Immutable X, put in your OMI, which is the crypto that underpins the VV app. It's like the only crypto associated with Disney. So you should probably buy some, not financial advice.
Yeah, probably.
And what they do is you can bet on there as well. And I was talking to the CEO a little while ago, and he says, if you take a gamble on Fish, he would 2x however many you take the chance on. 1, 2, 3, whatever. However many you mint, he would basically double for you. And he bets you'd enjoy it. And I think
for me or for anybody?
No, for you.
Oh, well, think of the value. I mean, that's just free money.
Yeah, pretty much.
How many can I buy?
I mean, you can buy as many as you want. I think there's like maybe 1,700 that are minted so far.
Send me a link and I'll do it.
Yeah, okay, we'll do. I'll get it to you right after this.
I have a problem where if I learn about any good NFT, I just buy it.
It's and again, like the CEO of that could go and say like, okay, now you have to pay something for your fish tank and something for these airdrops and something for the mech suits, and he doesn't, just gives everything. It's like, wow, this is great.
I will say one issue I have with the gaming NFTs is that you actually have to play with them. And that's a problem that I have because I don't have a lot of time to play, right? Which is why I made my project where there's not a whole lot of stuff to play. I do have free roll poker tournaments that I stream on Twitch, and we'll usually give away about 1 ETH in each of these. So in the last 2 months, I think we gave away 8 ETH in free roll poker tournaments. Yeah. But like that's something in my mind that's like worth really paying attention to, because you can win $600 or $800, right?
Yeah.
And I play a ton of games. I'm good at games. I like games, but I don't have time for games. And I just want to make sure anything that I do is very high value. And that's what I try to recommend to all of my holders as well, to like just do stuff that you make sure is adding value to your life, either because you're learning a lot, or you're making a lot of money, or you're having just like the most fun you could ever possibly have.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, or I used to. And nice. I have a giant collection all sitting back there. Way too much money worth of Magic cards. But I haven't touched them in like 5 years because it's low value is what it amounts to. I love it, but it does not make me smarter and it does not make me money. Therefore, priorities, right? I mean, it's tough. Whenever you realize at some point time is your most limited resource and you have to figure out a way to make the most of it.
Yeah, agreed. So something that I just thought of is, if the floor is, let's say, 1/3 of an E, let's say it's about $600 for your for each one of those cards, and if you buy a full deck, that's about a little over $31,000.
Well, so it's not quite. It doesn't work like that because some of the cards are worth more than others.
That's a good point.
The face card floor is something like 0.6 ETH. We have jokers. Jokers are like 1 ETH.
Oh, okay, so maybe like $45,000.
We also have a gold deck. There's one gold deck, and those give you double the utility. So there's 49 non-gold decks, one gold deck. The gold cards are pretty well locked up. I think the floor is about 2.5 ETH. There were a few 5 ETH sales recently for like a golden aces. Cosmo Medici owns one of the gold jokers. I told him to get it right off the bat. He bought it for 1 ETH. Now the floor for a non-gold joker is 1 ETH. So he did a good job of that. But yeah, so anyway, so I don't know the exact price to get an entire deck. But yeah, there are, I think, 6 or 8 people who do have an entire deck, and they just get everything. They win everything.
Yeah.
It's not a bad gig. And if you trust me to deliver value, and I can get values on the piece of art, I'm buying pieces of good poker players at basically face value, and they're going to have some edge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all free money in your pocket.
I wonder.
So look, I always look at any NFT project and try to find the risk, right? Like, what is the risk? The risk with that is that secondary sales do not pick up and the project does not sustain.
Mm-hmm.
If the project does not sustain and giveaways dry up after the first year and a half or so, because I know I already have enough money for about a year and a half. If they dry up after that, then your cards will lose value, right?
Yeah.
But you will have gotten all of that value already.
Yeah.
And especially if you make good use of the stuff you actually have to pay attention to, like in real life events. If you come to my in real life events, you know, that's value coming back to you. If you play my free roll poker tournaments, that's value coming back to you. So if you do that, you really can't lose, because even after a year and a half, you would have gotten your $600 back, no problem.
Yeah.
So losing secondary sales is a risk. Another risk is that I die. I mean, that's a real risk, right? I mean, anytime you have a project that relies very heavily on only one person, you got to worry about that. That said, I'm not too incredibly risky in my real life. I'll go out and have a party every once in a while, but it's those are like really the only risk I can see with this project. And I mean, I've told a bunch of my friends to buy in. They've just like minted the maximum. The maximum was 100 cards, and a few people just minted 100, no problem, right off the bat. And they've printed a bunch of money. Good job for them. I'm glad they listened.
Yeah, I mean, you said you're going to sleep no more. I don't know how you do with going up and down stairs being tipsy, because I always like to have a few drinks with that. I still haven't seen the whole play, because you have to see it like 3 or 4 times to see everything. Yeah. And just try to go up and down the stairs, and
even then you will not see everything. I don't know if you know this, but like they have individual performances for people when you go in there. If you like kind of get up in the performer's space a little bit, sometimes they'll take you to a back room and do a one-on-one performance for you.
Yeah, I was I almost slipped. Like, this lady needed help getting out of the bathroom, completely naked, by the way. I wasn't expecting that at all. And she's like, "Give me." I was like, "Oh, okay." And she was, I think she was supposed to be covered in blood. I don't know if you're remembering the lady in the bath. Yeah, and then I was like, okay. And then I was like, whoa.
That's a good scene.
Yeah, that was a good scene for lots of reasons. There was I was gonna say, like, that type of stuff. Well, what are you looking for at NFT NYC? What type of projects are you going for?
What am I looking for? I'm just here to hang out and have fun. I went to VCon recently, and I just like stumbled around.
Me too.
And we were there. We're doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to this other thing in Miami. If you like poker and NFTs, there's an NFT conference in Miami, August 1st. I forget exactly what it's called, but I can get you the information later. And it's at the Hard Rock Casino, and there's a big poker tournament series happening at exactly the same time.
All right, so poker, NFT, Hard Rock. I'm putting it in my calendar right now. Miami.
August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I think, is the conference. The main event of the tournament, I think, is like the 5th or something. And there's a bunch of other small tournaments as well. So,
all right,
if you like poker and NFTs, that's the place to be.
Yeah, me and my friend Steve will probably go to that. We like poker a lot.
There you go. So I'm going. I have a few parties and meetups lined up, mostly with anonymous whales. For some reason, a lot of the anonymous whales in the NFT space love poker.
Yeah,
I've been surprised to find out, like, a lot of them have like really deep runs in the main event. A lot of them are like finance guys, and it's neat. They like randomly gravitate towards me, and they talk to me about NFTs. I talk to them about poker. We bounce ideas off each other, and we help each other out. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. Like, I'm surprised. Like, I mean, you're also like, kind of like a minor celebrity, so people probably just want to be around you just because, photo op, selfie for the Instagram, get a bunch of likes, because like that. I mean, also you have that money making skill on top of you. That I think it was Wikipedia. You had cashed out over like $7 million in games over the years.
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, to be fair, that's not all profits. That is cash, right? But I mean, I'm up a few million out the door.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be like a weird thing to say, but people who are very private / anonymous, but at the same time wealthy and concerned with bodily harm is what it amounts to, right? Because a lot of the super anonymous whales who are like crushers in the NFT space are anonymous because they don't want people bothering them. They don't want people to know that they have all the money. And so I think they are very willing to befriend people who, to some extent, have a lot to lose, who, like, I'm not going to go rob any of them, because I'm in a good spot, right?
Yeah.
And it's very easy for like celebrities and whatnot to be friends with me because they know I'm not going to give them any trouble, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value in people knowing that you are a legitimate good human who's just going to try to be friendly and add value, right? Whereas whenever you're a fan, they don't know anything about you. right? Unless like they somehow know something about you, but people know I'm a professional poker player with a big business, and I'm not going to screw them is what it amounts to.
Yeah. I mean, big
or do anything
reputation.
weird, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Big reputation on the line. You definitely don't want to do anything to mess
And to
that
be
up.
fair, same reason why I don't mind talking to them, because they have a reputation. I mean, it's kind of interesting whenever someone who's anonymous has a reputation on the internet. And we've seen some weird instances of those things going down where,
Yeah. Did you see that the Telegram group? I don't know if it was a hack, but this one person got like all the Telegram messages, like I don't know how many terabytes of data. I don't know if they released them yet.
I don't think they have yet. I don't know what's going on. There's so much stuff going on in the NFT space and then like the crypto space. And I pretty much only focus on Ethereum NFTs and one-of-one art and profile pictures. I don't have enough time to focus on the gaming NFTs so much.
Yeah.
In general, unless you find me a good one, maybe we're playing some fish. But yeah, so I think an important skill in life is to figure out how much attention and focus you have to give to something, and don't overload yourself, right? And to be fair, I'm probably overloading myself already. I mean, I know I am. I have no free time, but you have to make sure you don't spread yourself too thin. And I think a lot of people get into all sorts of things. I mean, NFTs, poker, whatever, and they have information overload and they think they have to do everything immediately, and then they drive themselves nuts, or they just quit because they get disgruntled because they cannot learn everything immediately. And that's something you have to make sure you don't, drive yourself nuts doing.
Yeah, agreed. And you had obviously very successful, and you don't really need anyone else's money to put up for tournaments. But would you still do that if someone's like, "Hey, I'll pay your buy-in, but if you win, pay me back my buy-in and give me 25% or something like that"?
Well, so the way backing in poker typically works, there's two reasonable ways to go about it. One is you give me 25% of the buy-in, I give you 25% of the profits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like that's nice and fair. Yeah. And that puts no premium on the professional poker players' skill advantage over their opponents, or them getting up and traveling and spending their time playing, right? And those are things you should consider. So what a lot of professionals do is they sell at what's called a markup. So say you're going to give me $1,000 to play. Let's say you want 10% of my action in a $10,000 buy-in tournament. So that would cost $1,000.
Okay.
Maybe I would charge you $1,100. That extra 100 goes to me. So now you're putting up 11% of the money. I'm putting up 89% of the money. I get 90%. You get 10.
Yeah.
And that's probably reasonable and fair.
Yeah.
What a lot of people do that starts to get a little bit, I'm not going to say unethical because it's a free market, but they'll charge 1.5. So you have to put up 1,500 to get 10%. And at some point, I mean, the way poker works at the end of the day in tournaments is, in the long run, you have some edge. If you're a good, strong poker player playing reasonable tournaments, you'll probably have, let's say, 30% return on investment. You go there, you buy in for 10,000, you get 13,000 out on average.
God, it's amazing. But and that's not 30% over a year. That's 30% in one day.
Well, no, it's 30% on average in every individual event, but there's going to be a ton of variance.
Yeah.
So, like, usually you're going to lose. But on average, you'll make that 30%. But imagine you're paying me a 50% markup. Well, now you, the backer, is losing 20% every time you do it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Which is really bad, right? So I buy a ton of action. I own part of a poker backing site. And I'm aware of how this stuff works, right? And essentially, in order to be profitable as a backer, you can't really pay much of a premium. Because imagine you are paying that. Imagine I'm going to have 30% edge, and you're paying 1.1. So you should still make 20% or whatever it is. You have to presume I'm going to show up and play well.
Yeah.
And actually do it. So many people, you give them money and they go to play poker, but they stay out partying all night and before the tournament, and there goes some of their edge. You have to trust me to show up on time and maximize my edge. You have to trust me to do a good job. And a lot of people think they're professional poker players, but they don't treat poker professionally. And inevitably, they don't have nearly the results that they possibly could, right? So most people do not have the edge that they think that they have. And that's important to realize. Also, in the very high stakes tournaments that I play, say I'm playing a $100,000 buy-in tournament, I may have like a 5% edge, which is not much, right? I mean, you go there, you play, you make $5,000 on average. It's good for a good daily rate, et cetera, but there's a lot of variance. So you can't pay me much of a markup at all on that. If you pay 1.05, you're going to break even.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's no longer good for you. So I want to make sure that every piece of action that I buy for my holders of Deck of Degeneracy is profitable. And an easy way to do that is to buy my action at even money, right? Yeah. And then buy other people's action at little to no markup. That's what it amounts to. So I'm making a point to make sure every piece of action I'm buying is profitable. So far, I think we're up like $20,000 on the backing, mostly in like the high stakes, tough tournaments. Interestingly enough, a few of the Deck of Degeneracy holders are also poker coaching members. My training site's called pokercoaching.com. And they are members. They've been members for a long time. I know they're really good at poker. So I'm buying half of their action in the World Series main event. And now some of the holders of Deck of Degeneracy are going to be playing for us because I know they're good poker players. And I know they have an edge in the World Series main event. Yeah. So it's just another way to like get the community involved and get some action going for everybody else.
So being really good at this, have you ever decided to just try to count cards and just be like, all right, I can just keep track of pluses and minuses and go
Blackjack counting is way more difficult than just counting the cards. I mean, the most important skill at Blackjack is not getting banned. I've been banned from one casino for this, and it seems like an easy way to make money, but it's a grind because you're not going to make a ton of money doing it unless you're playing giant stakes. But you can't really play giant stakes because they'll ban you very quickly.
Yeah.
So your edge to some extent is capped, and well, your hourly rate to some extent is capped unless you're just unless you find a really good game, which don't exist anymore, or I don't know, like they just think you're an absolute idiot for some reason. But I mean, they usually think you're an idiot because you're making a lot of bad bets, right?
Yeah.
A lot of casinos at this point have figured out that just because a guy is drinking and throwing a party and being insane does not mean he is necessarily playing poorly, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what everybody used to do a long time ago. They would just act absurd. And casinos would give you all the action, but now they realize ignore the guy's act and just pay attention to what he's betting.
Yeah.
So I mean, the times I play Blackjack now is primarily to get comps at casinos where the expenses at that casino are very, very high. A good example of this, there's a place in the Bahamas called Atlantis that they had a poker tournament at for many years in the Bahamas, and the hotel room was something like $500 or $600 a day. And they would not give any sort of poker rate or discount. And the tournament lasted about 2 weeks. So that'll cost you $8,000 out the door for the hotel.
Damn.
Fine. What if we can instead figure out a way to play Blackjack for, let's say, 6 or 8 hours, lose on average maybe $2,000. I mean, sometimes we're going to lose more, sometimes we're going to lose less. Yeah. We're going to lose $2,000 at Blackjack, and then they'll give us a room for free. So now I'm giving away, let's say, 8 hours and $2,000 to get something that to me is worth $8,000.
Yeah.
So I'm paying 8 hours and $2,000 to profit $6,000 or yeah. Basically paying no money to profit $6,000, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm essentially trading 8 hours of time for $6,000. And that's a hell of a deal, right? So in spots like that, you don't even have to do any counting of cards or anything. You just show up and you play, and then you should act like an idiot and be absurd because you are losing at some small rate.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to make money doing that. I mean, a lot of casinos are comping decently well. Again, though, I think they're trying to get people in the door, but there are still a few places, especially like fancy resorts, where they don't really comp people all that well because they want to attract clientele that are willing to pay a bunch of money and don't really care about it.
Yeah. And when you play now, you only play in high stakes. You never go to like any of the places like Parks Casino, or you never go to like Atlantic City.
Not
anymore.
So much. I mean, it again just goes back to trying to maximize my time and hourly rate when I do go to play. I mean, at this point, a lot of my play, pretty much all of my play, is in events that have televised final tables or actually have a decent shot of final tabling, because that's good for my poker training site. It's good for me to show people that I can compete with the best players in the world. And a very logical way to do that is to play tournaments that only have 100 people. So you actually do final table decently often, that have final tables that are streamed. There's a studio in Las Vegas called the Poker Go Studio, and they host 4 or 5 tournament series a year. And the smallest buy-in is 10,000, biggest buy-in is about 300,000. And they final table stream all of them, and you get to play with a lot of really good players. Your edge is not going to be all that big, but if you can go there and you can make some final tables and you can compete, you will get decent media coverage, right? And that's good for marketability, et cetera, for the training site. Because at the end of the day, the problem with poker is that if you're really good, you'll probably make like $300 an hour or $500 an hour, which is good money, don't get me wrong. But if you can get a business that you can scale, you can make more than that. And fortunately, I'm in a spot where I have a business that has scaled decently well, and I can do a little bit better than that. And NFTs are a good example where you can invest a ton of money if you want, and it scales pretty well. Not like amazingly well yet, but decently well. Yeah. And so I want to do things that have a very good hourly rate is what it amounts to.
Yeah, I think so. Something that you could automate, which I don't think you'll be able to do at Features right now unless they enable an auto battle. But eventually the VV NFTs that I was talking about before that have like the partner statue and they have Superman and Batman and stuff like that, is that you'll be able to rent those out at some point. Mm-hmm. And you'll be able to have it automated. So because they only make so many, their collectibles app, let's say there's like 8,800 Superman and there's going to be like millions of people in the world that want it. They'll be able to automate it and rent it out. So I've been buying a lot of Disney NFTs and stuff like that. Is there ever going to be a point when you stop playing poker because everything's automated and everything is you're making so much money that the money you make at poker is not meaningless? It's not worth as much.
The money I make from poker today is not all that beneficial to my bottom line because I'm not playing all that much poker. I mean, the way you make a lot of money from poker is you find a game you can beat, you play it a lot, and you keep a proper bankroll. Because whatever edge you have in poker is not going to be gigantic, right? So imagine I do play, let's say I play 12 weeks a year, right? And let's say, how many hours do I play in a week? Let's just pretend it's 40. What's 12 times 40? Have any clue?
Yeah, it's 480.
Times 7 days.
Oh, times 7 is 28 plus 35. It's about 3,150.
Okay, 3,000 hours. Let's say I make $200 an hour. What is that? 60K? 60K?
Yeah.
Not that much money.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So I recognize this, right? And I mean, training site makes way more than that. So I don't need to play poker today. I play poker today to prove to some extent that what I am teaching my students is actually correct and successful and relevant. Yeah. I mean, I am the proof of my product is what it amounts to. And, we make a point to hire a lot of the best players in the world to also teach our students. And I'm learning from all of them. I mean, I basically kind of like with the NFT, I made the poker training site that I wish that existed. And I made the NFT series that I wish existed. I'm making products for me. And turns out a lot of other people like those.
Yeah. Who's the best player you've played against? Is it like Bill Hellmuth or is it Chris Jesus Ferguson, Chris Moneymaker? Chris Moneymaker's in VV as well. So I can't wait to get him on. That'll be fun.
There you go. Today the best players in the world are all a bunch of young kids you probably do not know. A guy I just hired to be a coach at poker coaching. His name is Brock Willson. I think he's currently number like 12 in the world or something. And he's been very high up. He's been playing for like 3 or 4 years and he's playing the literal biggest games. He's absolutely crushed online poker, crushing live poker. And there are a bunch of kids like that who, the way you get really good at poker, at least today, is you study the game theory optimal solver that will tell you the optimal play against another optimal opponent. And then you adjust that simulation to tell you what you would do if your opponent makes errors that you think most people make. So let's say you think most people don't bluff the river enough, let's say. You can program that in and it will tell you how to adjust your strategy based on playing against someone who doesn't bluff the river quite enough. Yeah. Or say you think your opponent doesn't check raise the flop quite enough, as most people don't do. That will allow you to usually bet way more often because you don't fear getting check raised off your hand. Yeah. So you essentially look at a lot of computer simulations and it will tell you what to do. Then your job becomes understanding why the computer does what it does and then going and implementing that when you actually play. And that's what all the best players in the world do. Simple as that. They look at the computer, they figure out what the computer does, and then they memorize rules and they implement it. And I actually have 2 courses at my training site where they're about 40 hours long, which is, a pretty big course. And there are quizzes after every single video. Every video is like 10 minutes long or so. And so there's a bunch of quizzes. It really makes sure you actually learn this stuff. And it teaches you a lot of those rules that come from the game theory optimal solver. And that way you know how to play most common spots. And you'll get either the best option or the second best option most of the time. And that's all you have to do to beat the vast majority of players.
That's a good point. I imagine that there has to be some type of way where that quant doesn't really work against another seasoned player. Like it might work for most of the population, which probably aren't that good.
So the way it works at the highest stakes is whoever plays closer to game theory optimal wins. Because very often you do not know what your opponents do wrong. You may have ideas, but you don't play that many hands with people in live poker to definitively know something they do incorrectly. So an easy way to make sure they cannot beat you for anything is to just play exactly like the computer. And to be fair, pretty much no one plays exactly like the computer. This guy Brock does, but almost no one plays exactly like the computer. And whoever plays closest wins. Now, there are things like poker tells, right? And a lot of these quant type players don't put a whole lot of emphasis on poker tells at all. And I think they're probably leaving some value on the table. But it's almost like a required skill when you play high stakes to sit there and not have any tells. That's just, they all do it. If you have bad tells, you're going to get demolished. So that kind of thing does also not exist at the highest stakes. So imagine tells are irrelevant. The only thing that matters is playing, like making better decisions across the board than your opponents make. Which it kind of makes the game sound a little bit lame at the end of the day, right? It's not like I sat there and I could read the guy, I could tell he didn't have anything, so I made a big call with my jack high or whatever. I mean, like none of that stuff really occurs at the high stakes. That occurs against players who are not all that good.
That's a good point. And you're pretty young. How old are you now?
37, I think.
Okay, so there was a. So were you in the poker game like the early to mid 2000s? You might have been a little young for that.
I started in 2003 when I was 18.
Because I feel like that's when everyone started playing. Like they started streaming it on ESPN, World Series of Poker, and everyone was into it for several years.
Yeah, so the poker boom happened mainly because they invented the whole card camera. The guy who invented the Transformer toys, I think his name is Harry Oppenstein or something like this.
That's the same guy?
Yeah, he invented the whole card camera. And he played a lot of high stakes poker, and he wanted to be able to film everybody's play and study and get better at the game. So he also invented the whole card camera so people can see the cards while you're playing, right? So it's a way better viewing experience. Poker is really boring if you can't see the cards. So he invented that. That got on the World Series of Poker on TV, and now all of a sudden poker became kind of popular. Also, at the same time, Chris Moneymaker, you mentioned before, he won the main event. He was an accountant who randomly won like a $25 tournament online into a $10,000 buy-in tournament main event, and then won that for some amount of money. I don't know what it was, $1 million, something like that. And that kind of showed that anybody could do it. Probably won't, but they could. And that was when the boom happened. And so a lot of the best poker players in the world today are roughly my age because they were 18, 19, 20 years old then, which means you probably don't have a family. You probably don't have a career, college, whatever. And you can just play poker all day, every day. So that's what I did and what a lot of my peers did. And if you look at probably, 90% of the absolute best players in the world, they're somewhere between probably 32 and 41, something like that.
So what was the climate like in like that mid 2000s area where you guys were like rock stars? Like I feel like me and a lot of my friends, like we knew like everyone, like that was, or not that we didn't know them personally, but just like we knew their names. That's what we watched. Was that similar? Like at the bars, like, oh my God, you're Jonathan Little. Oh my God, you're Sammy Farha, and like get bought drinks. Was it?
So I was not in the initial group of popular poker players. In order to be in the initial group of popular poker players, you had to be playing and winning on TV right around 2003, 2004, 2005. I was 18 years old in 2003, so I could not play live poker. So a lot of the players who are even today, everybody you're naming, they are not thought to be the best players in the world today at all. But they were by far the most popular poker players in 2003. Because they were playing poker in like 2000, before poker was popular, right? So they were by far the best players back then. And they also got all of the TV coverage back then, which has sustained for a lot of them to today. That said, a lot of them have not capitalized on it and figured out a way to lose all their money. But it's interesting how a lot of those poker players are by far the most popular players today. I mean, like, people did not start recognizing me from poker until I had a YouTube channel that started to do pretty well. You can find it youtube.com/pokercoaching. But that is what has to some extent driven my popularity because it gets me in front of lots and lots of people.
Agreed. So when you're playing, is there, and I imagine it depends which, like, do you ever drink or do you ever, like, I know some people, they might microdose on certain things.
I don't do any of that stuff. I take a lot of caffeine. I drink a lot of coffee. When I'm playing poker, I basically never drink whenever I'm playing poker unless it is purely a fun environment. So actually, I'm having a party in Las Vegas on June 30th for holders of Deck of Degeneracy who have a Royal Flush. 5 NFTs making a Royal Flush.
Nice.
The snapshot's already taken. I've already paid for all the stuff, so you can't come. But sorry. But anyway, we're going to go to Top Golf for a few hours. We're going to go play poker at Arya. I have a bunch of private poker tables set up. We're going to play some cash games at Arya for a few hours. Then we're going to go to Hakkasan for dinner and the Hakkasan Club afterwards, and then who knows what happens after that. But that's just one more perk of holding Deck of Degeneracy. But we're going to go there. We're going to play poker. I might have a drink or two at that casual poker game. But if I'm ever playing for any amount of real money, everybody takes it seriously.
Yeah.
Some people do experiment with various drugs. I haven't experienced with various drugs. I'm not going to say I'm like paranoid of dying, but I got a wife and 2 kids, and I don't want to do anything that could conceivably risk anything.
No, that's
it's
a good
just
point.
Not worth the potential upside because my life is pretty good. I don't want to screw it up. Yeah. Which may be overly nitty because I realize microdosing on anything probably won't screw you up, but maybe it does. Maybe it will. I don't know.
It's a gateway. It's like, oh, microdosing's great. Let me try not microdosing and taking a normal amount. That's even better. And then you take too much, and then it's like, oh man, this is.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's my experience with everything as well.
One thing can lead to another. So you mentioned before that there was going to be, or probably a second deck that you would go and do for NFTs?
Hopefully there will not be a second deck because the secondary sales just sustain the project indefinitely. And we're at a point where if they sustain as they are, we probably won't need to make another deck. Because we can go at like half the pace I'm going now. I would rather go at full pace or 1.5x the pace because I can invest a lot of money in poker players and I can get a lot of NFT art from good artists. And ideally, we don't have to reseed and get more money, essentially. But if we see secondary sales drop off or something like that, then we'll probably make another deck and resell it, just like we did the first one. And I'm very sure we could sell out pretty quickly because the first deck sold out pretty quickly. And I made all the holders a bunch of money. They see how I deliver. And once you prove to people that you're going to do what you say you're going to do and that you're going to make them a lot of money, then they'll love you.
Good point. They what was the most you ever won on one tournament?
I've won $1 million 2 times in poker tournaments. There are these 2 glass trophies behind me. There's a little glass circle there, you can barely see it. There's a glass globe thing there, you can barely see it. But those were the trophies for winning $1 million both times. There are these little bracelets. They give you little bracelets back in the day.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so that was lucky. I won $750K once for second place. Would have been good to win that one, but I didn't. But poker's fun. I mean, that was kind of back in the heyday of poker where you can win $1 million every week. Now it's not so much like that because a lot of the buy-ins have gotten smaller in general. Back then, the buy-ins were all $10,000 for the main events. Now most main events are $3,000 buy-in or $1,500 buy-in, which is, to be fair, probably good for local casinos because you got to realize local casinos all casinos want to keep the money in the hands of players who are going to come back and keep playing.
Yeah. If
I come in, play a tournament in a random place, win it, and take $1 million out of that ecosystem, that money's gone. They will literally never see it again. So it's actually in the casino's best interest to not have good pros come in.
Yeah.
It's also in their interest to pay out a lot of people. Back whenever I won my tournament, first place was 33% of the money. Now first place is something like 18% of the money.
Oh, wow.
And they pay out more players, right?
Yeah.
So they used to pay out 8 or 9 or 10% of the field. Now they pay out 15 or 18% of the field. So the casinos are realizing that it's not good to just give people large chunks of money because they're going to leave with it. And that's not so good for pros is what it amounts to. That's bad for traveling professional poker players because that comes out of your edge. Like for a professional poker player, you'd rather it be winner take all in every tournament because I am more likely to take first place than most other people.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to take first place very often, but it's more likely for me to do it than other people. And I mean, imagine first place with, let's say, $3 million in a 300-person tournament, then that's just terrible for the casino. Yeah. It's important whenever you're looking at any game or any financial system to figure out what the incentives are for everyone. And the casinos initially were running poker tournaments based on the structures recommended by poker players. But they realized eventually that that's not necessarily ideal for them.
Yeah.
And that, to be fair, it's bad for players. It's hard to make a living playing small and medium stakes poker tournaments simply because they pay out a lot of places.
Yeah.
And that's money going back into the hands of weaker players who will in turn buy in again to the next tournament, which is good for pros, but they're paying rake again to the casino. Like imagine instead of 10% of the people getting any money back, 20% of the people get money back. That's 20% of people who now have another buy-in to play again. And every time they buy in at a casino, the casino takes 10 or 12 or 15%. And it's just money go back to the casino, which is money not going to the players.
I also feel like that triggers a part of the brain where it's like, oh, see, like I won something, and maybe if they don't win even for 3 more times, well, I won that one time, so I could do it again. And yeah, I can picture that.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely good for. Well, it's bad for the losing players. It's good for the winning players to have people show up and play again. But at the same time, you're winning way less when you actually win. So it's one thing is good, one thing is bad.
That is a lot of fun where you have people that all they read is, oh, you get a high hand every hour for, like $250. Like, oh, I don't even need to win. I just need to get this high hand. And they come in and the rest of the time they're just not good at poker. And then just, they come for that. And then,
Yeah, so that kind of thing happens pretty much only at the small stakes. There was actually a hand I made a YouTube video on where someone folded 4 of a kind on the river when there were 2 straight flushes available. And it was probably a good fold because there was like no money in the pot. Then all of a sudden on the river, it goes like bet, raise, re-raise all in for like 500 big blinds into like a 3 big blind pot. And it was probably actually a good fold. But everybody, I probably got, 500 comments saying, why would you fold? You can get the bad beat jackpot. But there's no bad beat jackpots in high stakes games. That's not a thing. It doesn't exist. There's no high hand jackpot. And those are essentially gimmicks to get players in the games who want to gamble, right?
Yeah.
And none of that exists in the high stakes games. Fortunately or unfortunately, to be fair, you actually don't want stuff like that in your games because all of that money comes out of the game. They're not giving it away out of the kindness of their heart. You're paying for it.
Yeah.
And especially if you play in a casino where they have games like Limit Hold'em also in that jackpot pool, you're way more likely to get to the river in Limit Hold'em, which is a different betting structure than No Limit Hold'em. Most people play No Limit Hold'em. But you're way more likely to get to the showdown in Limit Hold'em, which results in you getting way more jackpots in Limit Hold'em compared to No Limit Hold'em, which is terrible for the No Limit players.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Also, a lot of casinos with bad beat jackpots or high hands, the casino takes something like a 10% rake out of every one of those they pay out. Which
also a good point.
What do they call it? They call it an administration fee.
10%
administration fee. They're just like vigging you left and right. Whenever you win, they expect you to give them a tip for bringing you the money. It's like, come on. Basically, there's like they're taking rake and then they're raking it again, and that's really bad for players. But a lot of players, at the end of the day, are not playing poker to actually make money. I study game design a lot. There's 3 types of game players. There are players who play primarily to socialize, which is what most game players in the world are across the board. Not necessarily in very competitive fields, but in most games, most players play for fun. Think about anybody who buys a board game. You're probably playing that board game for fun.
Yeah.
Then you have players who really want to push the boundaries of the game. These are players who like to run big bluffs, or they like to make big hero folds, like to fold their 4 of a kind, stuff like that. And then you have players who only care about winning. And players who care only about winning and basically every game move to the top pretty quickly. And to say you only care about winning, it means you are devoting your whole life to it. And I can guarantee you, most people playing the 1-2 game with a $250 high hand jackpot are not devoting their whole life to poker. They just aren't.
Yeah.
And that's going to result in them maybe thinking they're playing to try to win, but they're really not doing the actions required to win. And your actions are the only thing that really matter. The things you say do not matter at the end of the day. What matters is what do you actually do?
That's a good point. You mentioned a couple times folding 4 of a kind. Did you ever have a heartbreaking hand like that, or like I got it, and someone comes out of nowhere, like a straight flush or something?
No, I don't fold very often.
Okay.
So I mean, you can play poker in various ways, such that you have to make big fold, or you basically should never make a big fold. As you play a more tight, aggressive strategy, such that your opponents know you probably have a good hand. If I know you have a good hand and I still want to put my money in the pot, like I just have to beat your good hand, right? So if you instead play a more loose, aggressive strategy where you're going to have a lot of garbage, your opponents are going to not presume, like if you ever have a good hand, you really shouldn't be folding it because your opponents know that your hands are on average going to be way weaker than that good hand.
Yeah.
So if you play a loose, aggressive, battling strategy, you just should not be making big folds all that often. Now, to be fair, if I was in that spot where the pot was 3 big blinds, and then all of a sudden 500 big blinds goes all in on the river, I'd probably fold because what are they really doing? Unless they're nuts. I mean, I played a hand the other day in I think it was a $50,000 tournament, like the third hand of the day, where I was against a good, strong, world-class game theory optimal player. And I don't remember how the hand played out, but on the river, my opponent bet 1 big blind into a 10 big blind pot. I had the nut flush, but there was a straight flush available.
Mm.
So I raised to 20 big blinds. He goes all in for 300.
What was your kicker? Like, what was the?
Well, there were three diamonds on the board. Must have been like Jack of diamonds. Must have been Jack of diamonds, 9 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, then 2 other random cards.
Okay,
so
and then you
10,
had
10, 8 of diamonds was a straight flush, and I had like ace. I think I had ace king of diamonds.
Oh, nice. Oh, all right.
So on the river, he bet 1 big blind, which you actually should do with the nuts. And if you have the nuts there, we're not gonna get into poker theory too much here, but
yeah,
on the river, betting minimum with the nuts and a lot of medium strength hands is a strategy your opponent can't do a whole lot about, because they can't raise too wide, because if they raise and you do have the nuts and you rip it in on them, it sucks.
Yeah.
So anyway, he bet 1. I made it 18 or 15 or something. Then he makes it 300. And that's a spot where like you could conceivably fold the ace high flush.
Yeah.
But I didn't against this kid, because I knew if he had a random hand with whatever, a hand that makes it to where I can't have the straight flush. So if he has the 10 or the 8 of diamonds in his hand, this is the type of player who will run a bluff in that spot. But if you put me against like a random, straightforward recreational player, it's probably a fold. Because like, what are they really doing that with? Are they really going to take a random 10 of diamonds and bluff it? Probably not. Anyway, I called, and he had a jack with the 8 of diamonds for the bluff.
Yeah.
But like, that's like one of the best players in the world who is willing to make that play on the third hand of a $50,000 buy-in tournament. He just punts it right in there, you know?
Oh my God.
And I looked it up after the tournament was over to see if that was a game theory optimal recommended play, and it turns out it was. So he knew what the computer does, and he did it. And I'm supposed to call my hand, and he knows I'm supposed to call my hand.
Yeah.
But he still did it, because he doesn't know my hand, of course.
Yeah.
And it's a different game at the high stakes.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That kind of reminds me of this one hand I saw. It was so many years ago. I think Sammy Farha had like ace 10, and his opponent had like pocket tens, and then ace 10 comes out on the flop. So they both have, boats, and obviously Sammy's the one that wins. And he goes all, like, it's the first hand like of the tournament, and the kid goes all in. Sammy's like, immediate call, and that's rough.
I think I remember this hand. You like watching the old poker tournaments. This was from.
I just remember that one because that was such a wild hand. I've never seen anything like that before.
You love Sammy Farha. You might have a crush on Sammy Farha.
I do, man.
But yeah, I somewhat remember that hand, and it's a spot where, like, on the river, whenever you, like, let's say your opponent bets, you raise and they re-raise, you should never go all in with the tens there. It's just such an easy call, because when you do shove, if they have like 3 of a kind, they're going to fold. No. If they have a full house, it's going to be ace with an X that makes a full house, and you lose to that. Yeah. So that's a spot where a lot of people do overvalue their hand on the river when they have a hand that's high up on the ranking chart, but it's not actually that strong of a hand when your opponent on the third hand of the tournament wants to put all their money in.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the ideal world, you don't want to play in a manner that makes you make big folds. Yeah. You want to play in a manner that wins you a lot of small pots and lets you make hero calls reasonably, because that's how you get a hold of a lot of chips sometimes. Yeah. You do not win tournaments by slowly blinding out and hoping to get the nuts. You win by winning all the small pots that don't belong to you.
Good point. So you say you don't often fold. Do you often bluff? Or is that not yeah?
Yes. That is part of good, fundamentally sound poker. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but you should pretty much always have bluffs in your range. If you have a hand you want to bet for value, that should be paired with some hands that bluff in exactly the same manner. That way your opponents don't know when you're betting if you have a good hand or a bad hand. Because if they know if you have a good hand or bad hand, then it's easy.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it really is that easy against a lot of players in the small stakes games who never bluff or only bluff, right? But game theory optimal strategies, for the most part, couple every value bet with a bluff. And imagine you have a lot of good hands in your range that want to value bet. Then you also want to be betting a lot with a lot of bluffs. Like, for example, say you raise from first position and the big blind calls, and it comes ace, king, 7, right? If they check on ace, king, 7, if you think about the hands you would raise from first position, you should have a very good hands, right? You have a lot of aces and a lot of kings. And you don't actually have all that much garbage there, if you think about it. Like, you may have some suited connectors, maybe some under pairs, but you don't have 9-4 of spades or whatever for nothing, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So in that spot, you have a lot of really good hands, and therefore you can bet with everything. But if you raise from first position, and let's say the big blind calls and it comes 7-6-5, you don't actually have all that many really good hands when you raise under the gun on 7-6-5.
Yeah.
You have overpairs, but you also have a whole lot of ace king, ace queen, ace jack, king queen, queen jack that are just bad, right? So in that spot, you don't have all that many good hands, which results in you betting infrequently. But you still should bluff sometimes because you're betting for value sometimes too, right? But you'll be betting way less often. I mean, the way my tournament and cash game masterclasses at pokercoaching.com work is we go through and give you systems to figure out when you should bet and how often you should bet and how much you should bet. How often and how much are like your main decision points. And once you can figure out frequency and then size, that's really all you have to do. And essentially, as you have what's called the range advantage, as your range, every hand you could have here, connects better with the board, you want to be betting more frequently. And as you have more really strong hands, you want to be betting using a bigger size. And as you have more like medium strength hands, you usually want to be betting smaller. Very drastic oversimplification, but if you really want to go into it, check it out, pokercoaching.com. I have a fundamentals course, by the way. If you're looking to get into poker, it's probably too basic for you, Randy, but you can check it out at pokercoaching.com/fundamentals. It's a free course. It'll teach you from not knowing much about poker to being okay, good enough to play with your friends.
Yeah. I do have the issue with bluffing because I don't like to bluff because if they call, I was like, man, I just gave away X amount of money because I don't have anything.
So you're thinking too short term here. You have to realize if you bluff and they see you bluff, now they're going to start calling you a ton.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So whenever you get a good hand, you're going to get paid off. And not only that, if they're going to start calling a ton, now your hand's like top pair bad kicker can bet the flop, the turn, and the river and get called by worse stuff. Because like imagine you do flop top pair no kicker and they know you have something good. You can't really put in a big value bet on the river because they're going to fold everything worse than top pair bad kicker.
Yeah.
But now if they think you can have a whole lot of bluffs, now you can easily value bet that hand and get paid large amounts on hands that you may not otherwise get to get paid off on if your opponents know you also are capable of bluffing. This is why, remember what I said, you need to find a game you can beat, play it a lot, and keep a proper bankroll.
Yeah.
If you have a proper bankroll for these games, or at least a proper mental bankroll where you realize I have 100 buy-ins in this game, if I lose one, it's not a big deal, then that will allow you to make the play that is just right. Because every time you make a play that is not the right play, you are giving equity to your opponent. And you don't want to give equity to your opponent. I mean, my dad had the same problem where he would never like bluff, shove all in late in a tournament when he did not have a good hand. But one day I was teaching him, I'm like, look, you just got to do it. So somebody raises, he had, I think, Jack 10 offsuit. He shoved it all in on them for 20 big blinds, and they folded. He couldn't believe it. And then he did it like 20 more times in this tournament, and they folded every time. And he's like, yeah, man, I keep getting good cards. And in his local games, they thought just he was like weak, tight, straightforward player who never bluffed, right? And they just thought he was getting hit by the deck. And that was his first tournament he ever won, where he just like ran him over because he decided to listen to me and actually start bluffing sometimes. And if your opponents think you never bluff, that is the best time to start bluffing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will use that next time I go. You also got
to wrap your head around the idea that it doesn't really matter if you win or lose. All that matters is if you extract equity. Like whenever I go to play a tournament, I mean, a good example is that guy who bluffed all in on the first hand, right? With the 8 of diamonds or whatever he had. That's the spot where he knows making that play is going to make him some amount of money. And if he doesn't do it, he doesn't make that money, and that money goes to me.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to give me that money, so he's going to make the right play. And the computer has very clearly shown him this is the correct play. So he knows it's the right play because I'm sure he studied it. And if he did not make that play, he would pretty much not be one of the best players in the world. And that's a problem if you're trying to be one of the best players in the world. So anytime you make a play that's not the right play, you're giving your money to your opponents. You don't want to give your money to your opponents.
Does it worry you that in the future there might be some type of like, whether it's Neuralink or like Google Glasses that has AI that sees what you see and they make the calls right there for you?
So there are already computer programs that can do this when you're playing online. Yeah. And the most powerful version of this is where they show you the game theory optimal solution, but then you also have a good poker player paying attention to it and they adjust logically, right? And this is like expressly illegal on every poker site, but some people still try to do it. The sites usually catch the players and they ban them, but that already exists online. So all you need is Neuralink or glasses to put it on in front of you. Yeah. Google Glasses went for like the second they were around and very quickly in basically every casino. But I'm not so worried about live poker. Online poker, I think you have to be very, very concerned with that, and especially in the highest stakes games. I mean, I don't play online poker much anymore at all at high stakes because I realize people could be cheating or they could be colluding or who knows what, right?
Yeah.
It's just so much more logical for people to do it in those games. So you have to protect yourself. Got to protect yourself before you wreck yourself. And in live poker, you're definitely getting a way more fair game, assuming you're playing in a licensed, legal, regulated casino. I mean, don't go play in shady casino because then you can be getting cheated super hard. But I think a lot of people think they have to play whatever poker game is available to them, but you don't. You get to pick when you play and where you play, which may mean you don't get to play all that often. But like, for example, I don't play any games in New York City because they rake a lot. You might get robbed. The police might get you. You might get cheated. Just like everything can possibly go wrong. There's no recourse if any of that happens. This is an issue right now I think they're like clubs. They're called clubs in Texas, where you pay a membership fee to go into the building. Let's say $50 a day to go into the building. Then you can do whatever you want once you're in there. And they have poker games, but they're not licensed or regulated by any gaming board. Just the other day, turns out there was some shuffle machine that somebody rigged to cheat, and players were getting absolutely crushed in this game in a legal poker club because and there's nothing they can do about it because it was their game. They paid to have that table there. They can run the game as they see fit.
Oh my God!
So obviously, you don't want to be playing in spots where your opponents could be crushed they could be cheating, right? You have to protect yourself and be logical about it. And the thing is, a lot of people when they get cheated in that spot, they think they're supposed to be paid back, or they think something supposed to happen to the people who cheated them. But like, you're an idiot for playing in this spot where you could easily be cheated. But a lot of people don't get that. They think that because the game exists, it must be legal. It must be okay. But I mean, you gotta be careful because everybody is not out to give you a fair shake.
Yeah, agreed. That's why.
I mean, that's an issue in the NFT space. You got to be aware of what you're signing up for and what you're getting into. I mean, I've had people who, through decadent degeneracy, thought they were going to go mint some other project, and then somebody stole their stuff. It happens. It happens to everybody. There's like not a whole lot you can do about it. In the beginning, I was like reimbursing people by giving them a new card or whatever. Whenever I had a bunch of cards to give, but now cards are a few $100 each. You can't just be giving them $100 each. But I've done my best to try to teach people to don't be signing anything or sending anything that you do not clearly understand what you're sending. But I understand how it would be easy to do that. And it's a tough thing in the NFT space, security, because very often the thing you're getting tricked by is something that no one's ever seen before. Everybody knows now, don't put your seed phrase into anything, right? Everybody knows that, I think. But everybody does not know to make sure you're going to the correct URL whenever you go to somewhere.
Did you see that at VCon where people were leaving stuff like, hey, scan this QR code to be in part? And I was like, this is like the worst spot to do, because you don't want to scan the QR code and you don't want to go and God forbid it's like a phishing site and then so mint here and then it just drains your wallet. I think it might not be popular, but I think it means that we need some form of centralization, and we would need some government regulation. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not necessarily sure about government regulation, but definitely centralization to some extent. I mean, whenever you sent me this link, this could have been a phishing link, but I know what this program is that we're using, right? And if I did not know the program that we are streaming through right now, maybe I don't click the link. I mean, the other day, somebody wanted to talk to me about getting my decadent degeneracy art collection art onto some clothes. They're like some startup clothing manufacturer from France, they claimed. I looked at their site, seemed okay. Then they tried to send me some link that I did not recognize at all to go click there and look at the link. So I'm not doing it. Just not doing it, right? I mean, it is you must send me a link that I know is legitimate for me to go to that link, period, right?
So I will show you the Fiches link that I'm going to click on right now. Oh, God. Okay. The Fiches link. It brings you to Fiche where you can mint. I'm going to send that to you in a bit.
That could be a hacking thing too. This whole thing could be a whole. I mean, I'm going to have to do a lot of research now. You got me scared. You're trying to prove it too much.
So my name is Randy Chavez. But yeah.
But I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, you got to be careful, especially if your wallet has a bunch of funds on it. I mean, I definitely recommend everybody get a wallet that doesn't really interact with any minting sites.
Yeah.
Pretty much anybody who has any sort of assets in the NFT space has multiple wallets. You need a wallet on a ledger or a Trezor or whatever, and you don't really hook that up to much of anything unless you really need to and you really know that it is legit.
Yeah, I'm super paranoid. So for all my crypto, I have 6 different trust wallets because I have a bunch of OMI, and I put like 20 million OMI on each of it because I God forbid, they're in like, I don't know, somebody hacks it. If somebody hacks one of them, okay, cool, whatever, which shouldn't be able to. But yeah, if I had all my OMI on there, that'd be horrible. That'd be nuts.
Yeah, it's a tough thing where with various coins, you can spread them around. It doesn't really matter. But with NFTs, a lot of time you need to claim stuff with your NFTs.
Yeah.
Which is hard. I mean, one of my good friends has many CryptoPunks, many art blocks, many me bits, etc., and they're all locked away on a vault that he cannot even get to. It'll take him be a big pain in his ass to even get to it. It'll take him time and money to get to it.
Yeah.
And anything coming up with these things, he cannot mint the things that come out of it. They were like, I think it was called SIGs the other day for CryptoPunks, where I don't even know what it is, some nonsense. But the airdrop was worth like $3,000.
Oh.
You could flip it immediately, and he could have collected whatever it is, 100 times $3,000 if he could access his punks.
Oh my God.
And he just can't access his punks. And the airdrop passed, and he just realizes that's the cost of hyper security, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's a fine line. There is some line there where you have to have your stuff accessible, but at the same time, you don't really want to be interacting with stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's a balance, but definitely don't keep it all on a MetaMask on your computer. Don't do that.
No. God forbid you get robbed. Yeah, no.
I mean, so I actually had everything on my MetaMask on my computer for a while. And this guy who's hyper security guy, he said, you must put it on your ledger. And I was looking at the cost to send everything to my ledger. It was like 3 ETH to send everything. Because I mean, I have a ton of NFTs. I have many thousand NFTs. And I didn't send everything. I only sent the high value stuff, right? But it still cost me 3 ETH. He's like, yeah, that's free. Now you can sleep. And it's true. I didn't even know I couldn't sleep. I was that big of a noob. And to be fair, we're all noobs at some point, right? We're all getting into the space. We're all learning. I'm still learning. I mean, just the other day, there was a scam thing that was sent to everybody on OpenSea where they would send you an offer through OpenSea for like 5 ETH for this NFT that they airdrop to you. And then somehow if you clicked it, it would not let you accept the offer, but it would, in the description, it said to accept the offer, go to this site, which would then scam you, of course.
Yeah.
And it's weird that they can now make items that they can put an offer on, but the offer is not a real offer. But OpenSea, the legitimate OpenSea company, sends you an email saying you got the offer. So it's like people are figuring out all sorts of ways to trick the programs and whatnot. So you have to be super vigilant. If somebody airdrops you something and then somebody wants to pay you anything for it, it's probably a scam.
Yeah. No, agreed. I've been getting pretty lucky. Just because people, like, I don't know, they like the show and they like always reporting on VV and Omi, and I'm like, hey, I made something for you, and because I know them in the community, like I trust it, and it's been fine. But yeah, any random person with like no followers on Twitter or someone's like, hey, yeah, I don't think I could.
A neat thing about adding value like you do here is that people want to help you out. They want to do things for you. They want to give you things. They want to support you. And I would definitely recommend anybody watching this, if you are decently good at anything and you want to help the community of that thing, figure out a way to make content around it, because it's beneficial. And I realize everyone's not necessarily a video person, but maybe you make an audio podcast, or maybe you write a blog about it. And you're going to find that if you just put yourself out there and share your expertise with other people and help them enjoy their hobby or job or whatever it is more, and you add value, they're going to reward you very, very much in all sorts of ways you can't even conceive.
Yeah,
I'll give you a beautiful example of this. Beautiful example. So the guy that got me into NFTs, I randomly ran into him at an angel investing conference. He knew me from my poker training videos. He came up to me, we started chatting, and turns out he owned one of the biggest college tutoring sites that teaches people better than college professors does. But what they do, my English is clearly terrible. And so with my poker training site, he's like, yeah, I think I can make your content better. He designed those 40-hour courses. This guy who is like literally one of the best teachers of information in the world.
Oh, wow.
He went through all of my content. I basically taught him to play poker, and then he helped me design these courses. And so now I have these amazing courses that teach people to play really, 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 really well, really concisely. And that happened to me because I have a YouTube channel about poker, Yeah. And then that guy is the guy who got me into NFTs. He was coming to New York City for a party. They were auctioning off the CryptoPunks. And so this was about a year ago. So I went to this party. It was a lot of fun. I went and bought 2 CryptoPunks the next day. because I thought it was fun, and here we are. But like, I would not even be in NFTs most likely if I did not make YouTube poker content.
Yeah, and you have a big channel too. It's like 100-something thousand subscribers, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll talk to you off camera about something real quick about good things, but we'll end it here just because I know you got another meeting in a little bit. But everyone, thank you so much, Jonathan Little. I'm saying bye to Dashi. Bye, Dashi. All right, I will.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming, guys.